How's it going? Ryan Falkenrath here, settopacetriathlon.com. We are here. We're going to be talking about IRONMAN Texas, and specifically, we're going to be talking about the bike course. So, as you can see on my screen, I'm on the IRONMAN Texas website. You go over, you hit the course button, hit the bike button, and then it comes up with a nice screenshot of a PDF of the course. But you have to download the PDF in order to get through to the elevation profile. So overall, a gain of 1,224 feet, according to Ironman.com. So they've gone out there and they've either driven the course, ridden the course, and they've gotten the actual GPS elevation gain and losses out of there, which, for 112-mile bike ride, 1,224 feet of gain total. That's pretty flat. So just be ready for that. There's not going to be as much climbing as some other races might have. It is a 2-loop course, so if you look at that in the comments there, it is 2 loops in the instructions. Map. So notice the transition. It is a one transition race, but the beginning is out in Lake Woodlands, and then you swim into transition. So just be ready for that. So everything will be set up in transition. You rack your bike, and then you have your transition bags, so T1, T2 bags, so you get in and out of the swim. Wetsuit peelers if they got them. Grab your wetsuit if it's wetsuit legal, or speed suit, whatever you got, and you go through and you grab your bag, and then you go into the changing tent. Change. Usually they don't let you put your shoes on your bike. Some races do, some races don't. So you got all your gear, all your food, all your nutrition, everything you're gonna take with you, everything you're gonna hopefully you put, the water bottles and everything you could on your bike before the race starts. Grab your bike, head out of transition. So when you do that, you're going to head out here, and it looks like you're going to take a right and then do a U-turn, and then you're going to ride all the way down the highway, and then ride back, and then ride through, and then do another U-turn and come through and do 2 loops. So just be ready. Like I said, it's kind of a 2-loop course. It's not a true 2-loop course. Some of the sections you don't ride twice, but you're going to see the same scenery. So at least kind of on the way out, going south, you'll be able to see kind of what terrain to expect when you're coming back. And then when you come back, you can kind of make a better game plan if you didn't have one. So notice elevation profile. Coming out, you have a little bit of a climb, and then going out is down the hill basically for a long time. So you're getting about to 40, 45 miles before you have to do a little bit of climbing. Get back up to a crest, turn around, come back, a little bit of climb, a little bit right back into the transition. So it's kind of nice. It's going to be a little bit tougher the ride into transition because you're kind of going uphill and you're doing some elevation gain and some kind of looks like some rolling hills. So you just got to be careful. They've changed the course a couple different times. I did in 2014. It was a completely different course. So 2019, I think they changed it a little bit, and there's been highway construction, so it's just kind of gone through different modifications. One year, they had to change it, and it was like 80-some, 90-some turns in the race. Crazy. Obviously for 2020 they didn't do the race. We're talking in 2021, and we're staying optimistic that it is going to happen for 2021. So that's why I'm here talking to you about this bike course. So what you're looking at as far as elevation gains, 1,200 feet is pretty minimal as compared to Ironman distance races for 112 miles on a bike. Now, doesn't mean you can just totally ignore it, but training wise, it's going to be a little bit different because you're going to spend a lot of time probably in the aero position and just working on trying to hit your sweet spot, your 75% of FTP bike power. And then it's also about your nutrition plan, your hydration plan. That is going to set up the run all day long. So you got to make sure that you're hitting these right. Make sure you know where your aid stations are. So when you're going through and you're coming up with your game plan, you're going through and you're knowing where to stop aid stations, where you can fuel up, where you need to chuck water bottles, time that out. I always have on my bike one water bottle that's kind of a throwaway. I go and get just like a cheapy one from the store that I don't have any emotional attachment. It's not a race water bottle. So that one I fill up with water and just make sure that I'm working on that as I get out. And that's the first water bottle I trade off at the first aid station. So I chuck that one and get water, Gatorade, or whatever I want. Then I've usually got 2 bottles of just kind of stuff that is my homemade stuff. So I got 2 on the back seat. I got 2 cages on the frame. So both of those are water on the frame. The 2 in the back are my other nutrition that I mixed up. It's usually UCAN with some Gatorade in there and some other stuff thrown in. So just make sure timing wise, you know where you're at on the course for aid stations. Make sure you know where the special needs bag drop off is, pickup is. So some races are different. Usually you can only stop once, so once you get it, you're done. But since you pass by the special needs section twice, there might be an opportunity where you can get it the first time through or the second time through. Some races are different. Make sure you pay attention to the athlete briefing. Sometimes when you come through it the first time, that's it. And then by a certain time, they start packing it up and getting all that stuff out of there. So if you don't get your special needs, it's gone. It's trash. They're going to throw it away. So don't put anything valuable in there or anything that you want back. Excuse me. Usually I'll put in my solids and anything that I want to kind of get into me. Something a little bit different than goos, and sports gels, than power bars. Something with a little bit different nutritional content just to kind of mix it up, because at that point in time, at the 56 miles or wherever they try to time it, usually halfway through the bike ride, you're kind of sick and tired of what's on the course. So it's nice to kind of change it up, and especially if you have a bottle of special hydration that you need to refill up on. Then in my special needs bag, I'll usually freeze some just water bottles full of water. Make sure it stays cool. So when you pick it up, it's kind of cool. It's not just sitting there baking in the sun if it's sunny that day and tastes nasty and gross and hot. So make sure you plan that out well. Excuse me. So that's the keys, is being able to, when you're doing your training, you're going to need to make sure that you have a target power or target heart rate or target perceived level of effort. You don't want to just go out and hammer that first downhill, even though it's like, okay, I want to be at 200 watts average for the entire bike ride. You don't want to have to exert yourself and hammer it to get 200 on these downhill sections. So you need to kind of throttle back, say, okay, if I can get 21, 22 miles an hour with, if 200 watts was your goal, going down to 130 and you're able to hit 20, 21 miles an hour, to get to 22 or 23 is going to take an extraordinary amount of effort, energy, or to get to 200 watts. So you got to be smart on how you're going to pace your ride. So make sure on that first kind of out, you're pacing it, because you got a little bit of a climb, and then coming back into T2, you got another little climb. So there's going to be opportunities later in that bike ride where you're going to want that energy. So to make sure you don't waste it trying to hammer that first section because it's a downhill elevation. Like I said, there's going to be a part in the middle where you're going to have to put a little bit of effort in, and there's going to be a part at the end where you're going to have to come into transition. And that's when you should be starting to taper off your solids and make sure you're up to speed on your hydration. So you don't want to be caught off guard, spending all your energy and focus on that, and then you forget about all the good stuff, which is hydration, nutrition, and then energy conservation, because you're going to get ready to go run 26.2 miles. So that's basically kind of the highlights of the bike course. It is Texas. It could be windy, so make sure you're comfortable in the aero position for certain periods of time. If you're rolling in and you get to mile 80 and you're to the point where you can't tolerate the aero position anymore, it's going to be a tough last 30 couple of miles or so to get to the finish line. So make sure that you're comfortable in aero position, because this course looks like there's going to be plenty of opportunity to sit in aero position and just kind of nail a power and get there to the finish line. So make sure you're good with that. Make sure you're comfortable with going through bike transitions or bike aid stations. Aid stations. I've done videos on kind of how to time the aid stations, make sure that you're not going to crash, make sure you're aware of other people, make sure you're keeping yourself safe and the aid station volunteers safe, make sure you get the stuff you need and get rid of the stuff you don't need. It's going to be kind of a key point. So it's looking like this course should be fairly quick. So again, these aid stations, you're going to be probably rolling through at a pretty good speed. So if you want stuff, you need to kind of slow down and make sure that you're doing it and being mindful when you go through these. But basically, I mean, it's like I said, it's not rolling hills per se. It's not huge climbs. Like I said, I think the key is just to make sure you don't go too hot in that first 40 miles or so with the downhill elevation gains, because I think a lot of people will be tempted to try to hammer it. They like to see that high bike speed average, but don't be that person, because you'll end up passing those people on the little down or in the little uphill gain there at mile 55, 60-ish. And then might be passed by them on the next little downhill descent section. But then when you come into transition, that's where people are going to be out of the aero position on the handlebars and just wishing that they were done with the bike. And if you have done your training properly and you are comfortable in the aero position, you should speed by these people without a problem. It should not be an issue at the end of the bike ride. So just make sure that you're doing the proper training, aero position. You got a good nutrition and hydration plan, because the course could kind of slip by, and then you get to 1 hour, 2 hours into it, and you're like, oh crud, I'm off on my food, I'm off on my hydration. You just don't want to be in that spot if you're lulled into kind of a false sense of security. So like I said, it is 2 loops, so then you can kind of determine going out, what was it like? Coming back, what was it like? I might need to back it off because there's a strong headwind. Do I need to back off my power to make sure that I have enough energy to get through the end? Excuse me. Or there are sections that you can kind of get away with a little bit more. Or maybe if it is a descent and you have a tailwind, you're having a hard time with air position, that's a good time to be on the drops. Just so as little wind resistance problems as possible. Kind of stretch out and do things like that. I have to stop and stretch out my back, usually special needs. So I think there'll be opportunities there. And I've done a spectator video, but pretty much, I think once the race is going, there's not going to be an opportunity to cross that race line. So they need to probably plan to stay on the side of the highway that transition is on, so they can get back and see you come on the bike or off the bike if they want to, and out on the run. So just make sure your spectators are not on the wrong side of the highway, because I think that's going to be important, because you're not going to be able to cross, especially with 2 loops and you're going just in and out of that highway. There's not going to be, I don't think, a good time for people to cross that highway. So there's going to be lots of traffic stuck on there. Might be some angry people out there. So just be aware. Always keep head on a pivot. I do believe they shut down one side of the highway. So just make sure that you're safe out there. Just make sure you're watching for people, because they will get frustrated and they'll try to drive across the course, and they just don't care about people on bikes. Some people like that, unfortunately. So make sure you pay attention on that. Other than that, there's really not too much that stands out when I look at this course. Again, 1,200 feet of elevation gain over 112 miles is not that bad at all. But it is an outback in 2 loops, so just make sure you're aware of that. Could be some mental challenges that you're seeing the same scenery in the same situation, same highway, and just, crack seal after crack seal, you're just kind of pedaling along. So there is going to be some long extended periods of time that you might have an opportunity to let your mind wander, but you need to stay on your hydration, nutrition plan, hydration, nutrition, keep on your target power, keep on your target heart rate or perceived level of effort, whatever you're going by. That's the stuff you need to be focusing on, and it'll make the miles tick by. And then focus on where the aid stations are at, focus on special needs, and the bike will be over before you know it. So that's what I kind of recommend for the bike course. Like I said, I don't think it's too tricky. There's a couple of sections, when they've got the little diagram here that I'm circling with a mouse, that you may want to make sure you have pay special attention to, because there's a little bit different things going on. But as long as you're paying attention on the bike ride during the race, usually it's fairly obvious where you should turn. There's always volunteers, there's police directing traffic. So just make sure you pay attention, you don't miss any sections, because if you missed a loop or something someplace and you didn't cross the timing map, if you cut the course short 8 miles or something, that is going to be a problem. They'll probably give you a nice big fat DNF. So make sure you pay attention to the course. Other than that, there's not, like I said, too much that really stands out as an issue. When they switched to this course, I believe in 2019 they had the similar course. I think people liked it a lot because it was on the highway, and I think large stretches of it were fairly new or redone. So it was pretty quick. Watch out for drafting. A lot of people complained about this in 2019. So just make sure you watch out for the groups. Make sure you're doing the right thing. Don't tuck in with a group, and don't draft. Don't cheat. Don't be one of those people, please. But go out there and ride your own race and do the right thing. With that, that's kind of my take on the bike course. Gearing wise, like I said, there's not that much climbing, so I would kind of gear it a little bit more towards wanting that a little bit higher in speed without as much effort. My recommendation of the RPMs I like to see people in is between 80 and 90. So if you're down on that low end, especially on the descents, it's not the end of the world. So that's kind of what I recommend. If you got any questions like that, put them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. You send me an email, send me a message, and I'll always try to get back to you. And with that, happy training out there, and we'll see you out on race day.